Welcome to another episode of Hemp Baron. I'm Dan Humiston, and today's Baron made her decision to start growing hemp on their Western Colorado farm back in 2014, and since then has reintroduced traditional growing techniques, taking advantage of nature's own natural ecosystem to help them expand their growing acreage. Let's join Joy's conversation with Margaret MacKenzie from Salt Creek Hemp and 11 Acres Hemp.
Well, hello, Margaret. Thank you for being on Hemp Barons with us today.
Hi, Joy. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. We've known each other for some years now and really got to bond during the Hemp Industries Association European Hemp Tour last year, where we got to do technical visits and various ambassador-type visits with Germany and Holland and Belgium, and it was just so fantastic, and I know we both learned so much. And it's great to have you on today to talk about the two brands that you're managing of really fantastic hemp extract products, 11 Acres as well as Salt Creek Hemp Company. But before we talk about those brands, let's talk for a second about how you got interested in hemp. How did you come to learn about hemp?
Well, thank you, Joy. And yes, it was such a fun trip that we had together, exploring Europe and seeing the industry that has already established itself over there with the fiber. And it was just a phenomenal trip, and so much appreciate the HIA for putting that on. So we were introduced into the hemp industry in late 2014. My mom and my aunt had a ranch that they were raising cattle and horses on together. And then my aunt suddenly passed away in 2012. And my mom didn't really want to take care of the whole place by herself. She wanted to relocate back to the Front Range to be close to me and the kids. And really, we're trying to sell the property at that point. And then there was a big landslide. Anyway, long story short, the property wasn't selling. And so it just started becoming, a huge drain on finances, obviously, for taxes and insurance and everything else, maintenance of the property. So we looked into how are we going to make this land cover its costs, cover its expenses. And that's what introduced us to hemp. The 2014 Farm Bill had been signed. And we just started going to all of the events we could to educate ourselves, meet other people that were doing the same thing, looking into hemp as well and growing it, and really just fell in love with the people, the industry, the
revolution, the community, the opportunity. You fell in love with all of it. Once hemp gets up in you, it's in you. As I like to say to folks, it literally gets into your DNA and then it has you, and you just start working for its reemergence. Absolutely. And boy, did it get you, and aren't we lucky that it did. So you ended up forming Salt Creek Hemp Company with several partners who include your mother, your brother, and other very talented and skilled folks close to you. So tell us about, first, I'm curious, is it difficult managing the two brands? Tell us about the difference between, or what you want, to show the consumer in terms of the difference between 11 Acres and Salt Creek. And then for the entrepreneurs out there and so many other folks looking to get into the industry, tell us your experience managing two brands.
Well, we started Salt Creek in late 2014, 2015, and we really didn't have any intention of going to full retail and creating a brand. We really just wanted to farm. We wanted to grow hemp, and then we wanted to see it drive away in a truck at the end of the season. And as we learned, that was not the case. That was not really happening at that point in time. We were really at the beginning of, just starting to form or reform the supply chain. And so, there wasn't really that option for, selling all the crop and it driving away at the end of the year. So we were learning, we were, taking our time, really kind of dialing in what our goals as a company were. And that's, over the first couple of years is when we really decided that because our acreage is fairly small, that taking our hemp that we grew and then harvested all the way through processing into a retail product was the best return on investment for us. And also we could own then every part of it and really maintain the quality and be in control of the quality all the way through. And so that was really important to us. Just starting to see kind of the trends.
And you had infrastructure there because you don't do your own processing, but the blessing was you were there in Colorado at the nexus of the reemergence of the crop, and as well as basically the cutting edge of the discovery of, oh my goodness, we can extract these valuable, non-intoxicating, beneficial cannabinoids from the hemp plant. And you had infrastructure there to help you with the processing aspect. Because as you say, many farmers, and you well know this, they want to grow the crop and then never see it again until the next year when they're replanting. And vertical integration can be difficult, but there you had sort of the magic combination ready for you to move forward to build this to an end consumer product.
Yes, we were very lucky in that aspect. Whereas we didn't do we didn't have the infrastructure on site for the processing, but we do have a partner in Grand Junction that did the extraction for us, and then contract manufacturing pretty much right next door to that. So everything that we do is done in the same county. It's done in Mesa County. It's all local, and it's all within our pretty tight circle of friends. So it's really, really lucky.
I was just going to say exactly, and what a blessing that you have that, and that you can create that. So tell us a little bit about the two different brands, or how you decided to add 11 acres to your offerings as a partnership.
Well, we saw the benefit in having a retail line, and we had developed Salt Creek, and we all absolutely, are in love with the Salt Creek brand. But we realized that in the marketplace right now, there's just a lot of very generic product or branding and labeling. And so we thought we would take a stab at developing a more targeted marketing strategy and take the brand and really, aim it towards a specific demographic. So the 11 Acres is really a more female oriented, feminine looking label, and it's watercolors, and all the labels are watercolors of our ranch and from different angles and different perspectives of the land that we grow the hemp on. So really fun there. It was really fun to take that on.
So beautiful. And I love the fact that it's different aspects of your land. I got to be with you, as I often am, at a conference last week and admire and inspect them all. It's very beautiful.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We're all pretty proud of it.
Indeed. And so you created the more feminine brand, and now you're operating both of the sites. And how are you finding that as a business owner? Is it a model that you might recommend to other entrepreneurs?
Well, it is a model that I would definitely recommend people considering. And it's tough because I really don't, we're kind of new into this, second retail line. We really only launched it about 2-3 months ago. Right around the time of NOCO. So you're exploring. You're basically doing your own R&D as it is, and maybe we'll have you on again in the future, and you can let us know, because it is challenging, very challenging, even for very well-funded companies to manage two brands. So I'll just be excited to see how all of that unfolds, and just hoping for the greatest success for both of those brands, because they're such great products. And those products include soft gels, tinctures, salts, balms, some bath products, and of course deodorants. And I noticed you, like many folks, because of course we're navigating, we as in the hemp extract industry. I belong to multiple aspects of the hemp industry, but of course I also work with Elixinol. So when I say we, I mean, they're trying to navigate this gauntlet of FDA compliance in this untenable situation that we're currently in, and the FDA is, of course, trying desperately, it claims, to come on board to help create a regulatory framework for us. But, for example, in your 42 milligram capsules, which you gave me some samples of, thank you, last week, how much CBD, thank you, ma'am, how much CBD are in the 42 milligrams of hemp extract? How much is cannabidiol, or the actual cannabinoid CBD, in there? Do you folks know? So absolutely. And we know because we do third-party testing on every single one of our products that's on the market right now. So we do, and we went with the 42 milligrams on the label because that's what we feel we are, that is what we're describing what's in our product. We do know that there are 25 milligrams. So 25 of those 42 milligrams are actual cannabidiol. So, but we chose
so very potent, very potent. That's fantastic. 25 milligrams of CBD out of a 42 milligram hemp extract product is fantastic. That for many folks, that's a one soft gel, or one serving for their daily allowance for whatever they're seeking, temporary relief of or to improve their general wellness. So that's a potent little capsule. Thank you. So now I know that's what I've got. This is great.
Yeah. We grow some great oil.
You sure do. And thank you, which is a perfect segue. And where I was absolutely headed is one of the many things that impresses me about your family, about the way you do business, about the products you create, and about the plants you grow and the land you keep and steward is the use of regenerative agricultural techniques. And as we know, this versatile, valuable plant that has so much promise to build the soil, heal the biosphere, heal the planet, and increase health in the human population and animal population. But we know that in order for that to happen with hemp, because it is a hungry plant, we're going to have to employ regenerative agricultural techniques. And that the stewards here, those of us leading the industry, and you're such a valuable part of that, Margaret, are absolutely determined that we're not going to let this valuable, versatile crop go the way of big ag, same old, salinate the soil, over fertilize, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. So tell us a little bit about some of the regenerative agricultural techniques that you employ. And I'm a big fan of cover crops, so please try to hit that too, Miss Margaret.
Absolutely. Yeah. So hemp is definitely not the only thing that we produce on our farm. We grow everything from our own vegetables to our own beef and so and the hay. So we also raise hay for our cattle and our horses for the wintertime, that we know that what they're eating was raised here, was grown here with our practices and it's not been, sprayed with any pesticides or synthetic fertilizers. So everything that comes from our farm here is very clean and very much, the quality is definitely controlled by our inputs. And so we use our cattle, we rotational graze our cattle. And so they are constantly moving from one area to the other, stirring up the ground, grazing it and fertilizing it as they go. So it's a challenge sometimes because we have old fencing around the property. So sometimes they end up where they're not necessarily supposed to be. But for the most part, it's we're all learning, but it's working out pretty well. And we use our cows. We put them.
That's a practice of paddocking. Am I correct?
Rotational grazing. We use electric fence in some areas for them, but mostly we're using existing fence and just pushing them through to the different areas. So, and making sure we're utilizing all of the land. We have about half of our property is dry land, and so, which is non-irrigated. And so to take advantage of all of the land on our property, they, in the springtime when everything is wet from the snow melt and the early rains, they go up high up on our property and utilize the food that's available for them, up in those areas, and all the while keeping the low brush taken care of, and which is great for fire suppression and really letting the terrain open up, if you will. So keeping that good biodiversity alive in the soil as the cows move through.
So important. So yes. Important to keep that, to build that soil, all of that organic matter. And as you say, it's the key word, biodiversity.
I want to take a quick break to thank you for listening to today's show and to invite you to check out all of our other cannabis podcasts. As the industry's #1 cannabis podcast network, we are constantly adding new shows. So go to MJBuls.com to see our new shows and to become part of the Cannabis Podcast Network.
And that brings us right into cover crops. Tell us a little bit how you use cover crops for weed suppression or building of the soil, moisture conservation, and even integrated pest management.
Yeah. Well, we don't do a lot of weed suppression. We do a lot of weed management. Mind you, weeds are just plants that are growing where you don't want them to. That's what we call weeds. But I am a huge fan of a lot of weeds, actually, because a lot of weeds do a lot of the groundwork for you. We do a minimal till technique for growing our hemp. We typically just till in the rows we're going to plant our plants, and then between the plants we leave a cover crop, which is a mixture of hay, grass hay, alfalfa, clover, dandelions. Oh, we've got all kinds of plant material and weeds as well, what you would call weeds as well. And a lot of those weeds that come into those.
And I use those words, but the reality is you're planting those particular cover crops very intentionally as their nitrogen fixers. So I guess when we say weed suppression, we would prefer to have nitrogen fixing intentionally planted sort of cover crops as opposed to weeds that might be taking from the soil as opposed to replenishing them with alfalfa and clover, as you say.
Definitely. And so we leave that cover crop in between the rows for several reasons. It's green material, and green material reflects heat instead of absorbing heat as brown, dry, dirt does. It allows any moisture that comes onto the ground to be absorbed and to hold onto that moisture more than, your brown, bare dirt. And also it provides a food source for your typical pests like your grasshoppers and other, leaf eaters that come through. And I mean, last year, holy cow, let me tell you, we had grasshoppers like you would not believe. You couldn't even walk through the field without getting just bombed with grasshoppers. You got hit as you walk through. And so I truly believe that if we had not had the cover crop as thick as we did, that there would not have been another food source for those grasshoppers, and they would have eaten our hemp. And as it was, we saw little to no pest pressure from the grasshoppers on the plants. So we're very, very grateful.
Amazing. Isn't it just incredible? Cover crops, all of the benefits of a cover crop, including this integrated pest management, because you know very well as I do that many growers had grasshopper damage last year in Colorado. They were hungry and they went right for the green on the bast, right on the green of the stalk. Obviously, the bast fiber attracted them and they would eat right through. So incredible, employing these techniques.
Yeah, we really don't have another option at this point. We really have to start going back to these practices. Hey, this is not new. This is not a brand new farming method. This was farming and this was land management long before traditional agriculture came along. So we need to just remember.
Absolutely. And you had started to say earlier, and it's probably a great time for us to discuss that, the different aspects of hemp, right? We're talking about human and animal nutrition, body care, nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, and general wellness. And we're also talking about paper, textiles, building materials, bioplastics, biocomposites, industrial sealants and coatings, energy, fuel, nanotechnology. Oh my Lord, somebody stop me. But when we talk about growing this crop for human or animal consumption, we're talking about needing to use our best soil because, as you well know, it's a phytoremediator. Hemp will, absorb and uptake contaminants and heavy metals in the soil and is used for that purpose in various industrial sludge type areas and even, Fukushima and Chernobyl to clean up the soils there. But we certainly can't have those types of plants in our food supply or in our nutraceutical or pharmaceutical general wellness supply. So tell us a little bit about your feelings your feelings with regard to cleanest, best soil and how important that is for things that are going into our mouths.
Oh, absolutely.
And onto our bodies,
absolutely.
Frankly.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our skin is our largest organ, and we absorb things that touch our skin, into our bodies. And yes, that is one of my biggest educational passions right now, is bringing that point to these farmers that are interested in growing hemp and wanting to integrate hemp into their rotation, and not necessarily understanding that part of the hemp plant and what it does. And not only phytoremediator, but it's a bioaccumulator. So that means that it takes up those heavy metals and residual pesticides and toxins that are or can be present in soil. And not necessarily just from previous agriculture, but also from rain that maybe was the clouds were formed over an area that was, very toxic or anything. There's all sorts of ways that toxins can get. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways that toxins can get into the soil. There's the pesticide drift issue. There's all kinds. So, yeah, just not knowing that is a characteristic of this plant, and people need to understand that, because it can translate into a finished commodity, a finished product. And if you're trying to create a product that is going to be helping people, knowing that can translate into a product that is going to be ingested, is going to be consumed, that is a very important thing to know. And that is a very important consideration to have. Well, that is why we always do soil testing before we even start planting in areas that, when we're helping farmers out, we always say, what's the first thing we do? We test our soils. And we not only test our soils for our pH, our nitrogen, phosphate, potassium levels, we test it for heavy metals, residual pesticides, and other kinds of contaminants. That way we know what we're starting off with. You don't want to get down the line and be harvesting your crop and find out that it's got, unsafe levels of heavy metals in it. And so it's so important for not only the end consumer of that product, but also for the farmer, because, a lot of people that are starting to grow can't afford to have a total loss on a crop because it's got pesticide contamination. Let's try to avoid some of these catastrophic issues that are gonna, come up if we end up with heavy metals and pesticides in our end product. So that's my passion project.
Absolutely. And so important for the consumer to know these things. And we have such a shared responsibility to work very hard. The Hemp Industries Association, of course, you do such great work, and you're on the board of directors for the Colorado chapter of the HIA, and thank you for that. As you know, I have the privilege and honor of being the president of the Hemp Industries Association, formed in 1994, and we have such a shared responsibility here, the industry, the trade associations, the advocacy organizations, to teach consumers what they need to know. They know that they want this thing called CBD or hemp extract. They just are faced with a whole bunch of different products out there on the market and not knowing even the first questions to ask. And of course, one of the most basic questions to ask is, where was this plant grown and how was it grown? Then how is it processed, and so on and so forth. It's just so important. Well, I want you to know, 11/8.
How was it made? Where was it made? Was that the manufacturer compliant with their local health department? All of those things are so important.
Very, very much so. And all I can tell you is that your single origin, small batch, basically hand harvested products that you deliver to the world. Just thank you for being such a great leader in this space and setting such wonderful standards for everybody, and for being such a voice on stewarding this crop. And do you think maybe we might get you to come with us for the HIA European tour next year? We're going to do, I think, France and Italy next year. Thinking about it, Miss Margaret? I know I am.
So excited. Definitely.
We learned so much. The world is getting smaller and smaller, thanks to the internet, thanks to people, and thanks to hemp. It's just incredible being able to look at the world through the hemp eyes that we are so privileged to look at it through. And it sure is a privilege to look at it with you, sister. So thank you for everything you do for hemp and for the industry and for the hemp community.
Well, and thank you for being such an inspiration to us. So we appreciate you and all you do.
You know, we couldn't have it any other way. Once that plant gets you, as we said, it gets you. So such a pleasure, sweetheart. Thank you so much for being with us today, Miss Margaret.